Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. Wasn't planning on doing another video, but I just got home about an hour ago, put on the computer, and I just saw that Marianne Faithfull died at the age of 78. As a huge Rolling Stones fan, that means, of course, I am a fan of Marianne Faithfull. I'll never forget when I read her autobiography, Faithful, when it came out decades ago. I mean, you talk about one of the most incredible, adventurous lives, up and downs. It's a fascinating story. So let's talk about Marianne Faithfull, and I'm going to talk about her music as well, because I really am a fan. From what I remember from her book, when she was a youngster, she was actually educated in a convent. And then she left the convent when she met the Rolling Stones in the early 60s, mid-60s. Andrew Oldham fell in love with her as well. She was beautiful, had a sweet voice, and made her a recording artist as well. And of course, she became Mick Jagger's girlfriend and went from being this unknown, beautiful girl to one of the most famous people, in London and the world at that time. Then, after her breakup with Mick Jagger, her high life really became a high life. She just became a massive drug addict, alcoholic, and at one point she was a heroin junkie on the streets of New York. Really pretty destitute, except for help that she would occasionally get from the guys in Stones and maybe some others. She made an incredible comeback in 1979. We're going to go through her discography with Broken English, really famous classic Marianne Faithfull album. But what a shocker. I got Broken English when it came out, and if you knew her voice when she was young, it was this beautiful angelic voice that matched her beautiful angelic face. And with Broken English, she came back with a voice that was worn and torn, almost Tom Waits-like, alcohol-soaked, completely different, gravelly. And you were like, what was this? But the songs and the music were unforgettable. And she really put together quite a discography, which we will go through album by album in a little bit. But I remember seeing her. It's actually funny. I recently rewatched the Stones in the Park, and one of the not the greatest Stones concert. It was Mick Taylor's first concert with the band. But there's a scene in there. This is 1969, and they're on the way to Hyde Park. And who do you see in the back of the limousine with Mick Jagger? But you see none other than Marianne Faithfull with her young son. Nicholas, who was a son that she had from her first marriage with John Dunbar. So you see that. She was even in the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus. Here's a Laserdisc, in case you want to know. And, there's a point in the Rock and Roll Circus where she's doing Something Better. This beautiful little song, and she's laying with a dress on the floor, and the camera just circles around her, and she's beautiful and angelic, and a voice to match it. She's really good. What the hell? We'll start going through the discography a little bit. If you want to experience those early years of Marianne Faithfull, this was her first album. Marianne Faithfull came out around 1965, and it was a hit back then. Of course, she did As Tears Go By. Jagger and Richards wrote it, but she did it first, and it was a hit. Then the Stones did it, but this was a top 20 album both in the U.S. and in the UK. But if you want to get into Marianne Faithfull, really, from the early years, you're probably better off with, from ABCO, Alan Klein's label, Marianne Faithfull's Greatest Hits. And those are those early years. And they're just really sweet songs. There, you can see it right there. And they're really good. She's good. This one's cool because it has a version of Sister Morphine, which, of course, Jagger Richards wrote, but took some of her lyrics, and she did get a co-writing credit eventually, and that was on Sticky Fingers, but she does a cool version. We'll talk more about her discography in a little bit. But, she was really famous, worldwide. 1967, I think it was, when the Stones had their legendary bust at Keith Richards' house, Redlands, and she was there naked with a fur rug around her, supposedly doing some things with Mars bars. And they went to court, and Jagger and Richards were like, don't bother us with your petty morals, Marianne Faithfull was right there. And like we mentioned, Sister Morphine, man, you talk about a harrowing depiction of addiction and overdosing. It's all in that song. And of course, she did have a suicide attempt later on after her breakup with Jagger. But in the last decades of her life, she has not had it easy. I guess she never really had it easy anyway. She'd been living in Paris. She battled cancer. She had hepatitis C. She had some falls. She broke her jaw. She broke her back. She broke her hip. She has not had it easy. Lots of ailments. But she did outlive her friend and fellow Rolling Stones muse and musical confidant, Anita Pallenberg. And she passed away. And if you want to learn about Anita Pallenberg, who is another beauty, amazing rock and roll story, another muse of the Rolling Stones, check out this documentary. It's awesome, called Catching Fire, a portrait of Anita Pallenberg, who's really got another incredible story. Marianne Faithfull and Anita Pallenberg were friends, and boy, they have done it all. But let's talk about Marianne Faithfull. So that was her early career. This was Broken English that came out in 1979. Again, her voice was completely different. It came out on Island Records, and this is an amazing album. She does a cover of John Lennon's Working Class Hero. She owns the song, but we'll talk about the live album later on. But Why'd You Do It is unforgettable. Broken English. This is a great album, but again, her voice, I guess you could say it's an acquired taste. It's Tom Waits-like, man. Her experiences on the streets and drugs are all in her voice, and that's a great album. The second album she released, which came out in Broken English did good. In fact, it's the only top 100 album she's ever had in the United States, except for that debut album. So she's really well respected. Didn't sell a lot of records, so it's cool that the record companies still put her stuff out. Because Broken English peaked at 82 in the U.S., did better in the U.K., hit around 50, but never a big seller. Her second album that came out in 1981 was my most successful album. This album was a top 3 album of the year for me, Dangerous Acquaintances. And it's a little bit more commercial to a certain extent, and Sweetheart, and Strange One, and For Beauty's Sake, and So Sad, Eye Communication, Truth But a Truth. This is a killer, underrated album. Did good in the UK, hit it within the top 50 actually. That's a really good record. Her third record was also really good, and for me, these are the 3 best albums she's ever done. Are those Broken English, Dangerous Acquaintances. This one's the third one, called The Child's Adventure, came out in '83. This is it on vinyl, and this is the one that's got Times Square on it and Falling from Grace. 2 amazing songs. The Blue Millionaire is really cool. It's a good record. Not quite at the level, I don't think, of those 2, Dangerous Acquaintances and Broken English, but that's a fine album. The fourth album she did was this one, Strange Weather. Interesting release. Didn't chart in the United States, and that was pretty much the end of her commercial career here in the United States. This is a good one. She does a redone version of As Tears Go By with her current voice at that time, and it's like night and day compared to the sweet original version, but it is what it is. So Marianne Faithfull, definitely a bit of an acquired taste in her latter day years, but still really high quality. If you want to get into Marianne Faithfull, I would recommend, I'm a huge live album fan. This is a great live album. There's also a video of it called Blazing Away, and this is her live. This one came out in 1990, so it's around that time period. The first song is like, I guess, a French hymn, so don't judge it just by the first 2 songs. After that, it really picks up. But Working Class Hero and Sister Morphine, As Tears Go By, Why'd You Do It, all the rest, Times Square. From the third song on, man, it is just one of the all-time great live records, Blazing Away. Highly recommended. There's a cool video of it as well. For me, that's her at her peak. After that, I don't have all of her albums, but I have a lot. I have like 14 or 15 or 16 of her albums, something like that. This one is A Secret Life. They're all good. This one came out in 1995. Now she's past the time of getting charting albums, but there's all good stuff on these albums. There's all stuff to explore, but definitely check out the earlier albums on the live record. She started getting help by other artists. This one is Vagabond Ways. This came out in 1999. They're all good. I'm going to say it's a good album. Incarceration of a Flower Child, I think she wrote that, or Roger Waters wrote that for her, something like that. This is Kissing Time. This one came out in 2002. Again, none of these are charting anywhere, but this is a good one. You can see she got some help from Beck and Blur and Billy Corgan and Jarvis Cocker. So she starts getting help. She's a songwriter, but she typically gets help as a songwriter. But there's a lot of good ones. This one's got Sex with Strangers. That's a cool song. This is a deep, kind of a cool record. Let's keep going. What's some of our other albums? Boy, David, I hope this doesn't fall. We got Before the Poison. This one came out in 2004. I don't want to repeat myself and say it's good. They're good. They're good records. And what else do I got? I got this one. This is the last of the studio records I got. Give My Love to London. Love this cover. This one came out in 2014. She's prolific, and she has other albums. I don't have all of her albums, but I pick them up when I see them. But for me, the go-to are those first four and the live one. This is another good idea. If you want to investigate her, she got a couple of compilations. This is a single disc compilation called Faithfull. Good look at her right there. And yeah, this is a great one to get. There's some really good tracks on there. Ghost Dancer cover of Patti Smith's song. Why'd You Do It? This is really good. If you want to go deeper, and I would recommend it, this is a great one. This is called A Perfect Stranger, The Island Anthology. I don't know if these are still readily available. And unfortunately, the way life is, when somebody passes away, they might actually get more popular. So maybe they'll reissue this thing. But this is great. And this is a double CD. And really, starting from Broken English, but it goes much deeper. Nice to see songs from Dangerous Acquaintances, which I love and is a misunderstood and kind of forgotten album, but this really covers most of her career up to that point. This is a great, great compilation. Highly recommended. This is a cool one to show you as well. Here's a 12-inch single of Broken English. This is kind of rare. Great look at. That's what she looked like in her mid days, not the early days, but not the really end of the days. But there, with her cigarette and kind of a worn, but still a beautiful woman. And this has a long version of Broken English and a previously unreleased version of Sister Morphine. This is nice. You can see that. So I thought you might get a kick out of seeing that. Marianne Faithfull. She lived a pretty long life, 78, considering everything that she's been through. And she's left quite a legacy. And I showed you here. Oh, let me show you one other one. Shit, I forgot. Here's one other one. This is a DVD. They were releasing DVDs and CDs. This is a Live in Hollywood release. And this is got a lot of latter-day stuff. And it's also a fine live record. Not the one that I would go to. I would go with Blazing Away, but still really good. And a lot of great, great songs on here. Forgot to show you that one. So Marianne Faithfull, there's a lot to discover. And like I said, I don't have all of her albums, but I got most. And there's a lot to discover. She left a really good musical legacy. She was a lot more than just at some point in her life, Mick Jagger's girlfriend. So a lot to discover. And I would say it's a sad loss, but you know what? She lived a long life, 78, compared to her lifestyle and everything she went through. She was such a survivor. And like I said, she actually outlived Anita Pallenberg. So there you go. Marianne Faithfull, I'm going to be listening to some of the tunes later. And I hope you enjoyed this video, this impromptu, very quickly put together video to celebrate the life and the discography and the great music that Marianne Faithfull left behind. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time on the Alan Rosenberg Show. And leave comments. I always love that.